What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Kyle Rust and I'm a heart survivor and a near-death experiencer. In 2026, I have set out on a mission to run 2,000 miles between me and my two dogs to bring awareness to sudden cardiac arrest in people under the age of 25 and bring awareness to how preventative measures and life-saving measures like heart screenings can save lives and make a difference in the amount of lives that we lose every single year due to sudden cardiac arrest. 3 years ago, almost 4 now, I almost didn't make it. I shouldn't be here. I went through a stint of my life at the age of 22 where I didn't know if I was going to make it to the next day. I luckily made it to surgery and went under the knife at age 22 for open heart surgery to repair my mitral valve. It was almost an emergency surgery. My heart was failing and I had no idea. I felt fine. I was active. I ate right. I watched my nutrition. I stayed healthy. I was an athlete growing up, and I had no idea that I had a heart condition. I was in the midst of heart failure and had no idea. And I want to get on here and begin to share my story and why this mission specifically for 2026 means so much to me, and why not only in 2026 I'm pushing this mission, but how I want to grow it and continue way beyond 2026 and way beyond just running 2,000 miles. So I want to dive into my entire story as well as my mission, kind of give you guys some education on, heart screenings and what was wrong with my heart. So I have some notes written down right here. So if I'm not looking at the camera, I'm looking down here at my notes just to make sure I'm touching base on everything that I want to hit on here. So I want to dive into the discovery of how my heart condition was discovered. So like I said, at the age of 22, I went in for just a normal yearly physical. It was December of 2021, and like I said, went in thinking I was going in for just a normal physical, in and out, being told I was healthy, fit, and keep staying active. That's not what happened. My family doctor was doing his normal stuff, normal tests, checking my ears, my throat, my nose, checking my reflexes, all that fun stuff, going over my vitals, going over blood work, things of that nature. And then he got to, pulling out the stethoscope, listening to my lungs, and then got to my heart. He put the stethoscope up to my heart, and I immediately noticed this confused look on his face. And that kind of gave me this weary feeling because I've known him for a very long time. I've been seeing him for a very long time, and I had never seen him make that face before or have that reaction. He listened again, moved the stethoscope around, listened longer than normal, which also made me, again, kind of nervous, questioning what was going on. And then he looked at me and said, "Have we ever mentioned that you have a heart murmur? Or have I ever mentioned that you have a heart murmur? Or has anybody?" And I looked at him, I was like, "No, not that I know of. I don't remember you saying anything. And no other doctor has said anything to me about having a heart murmur." So he goes back and checks his charts. And he's like, "Yeah, I don't have anything in your chart about me at least hearing a heart murmur, and nothing from other doctors about you having a heart murmur." What I didn't know, and now I know after almost 4 years of talking to different people, most doctors at that point would say, "All right, this is a new finding. Let's monitor it for 3 months or a month or 6 months. I want to see you back in a month or 3 months or whatever, and see if it progresses, see if it gets worse, see if it gets better, see if it stays the same, and just monitor from here. What my doctor did differently is he said, hearing this heart murmur, the fact that it's new and it all of a sudden popped up within a year's time, kind of confuses me. And the way you live an active lifestyle, the way you like to, push yourself, I would like to go ahead and have you screened and get you an echocardiogram. At that point, I had heard of heart murmurs. I didn't really know what it meant. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what it sounded like. I didn't really know what an echocardiogram was. I knew it was a heart screening. I knew I had had one when I was younger due to having some heart issues when I was younger, but nothing ever came out of that when I was younger. I just remember having one. I didn't remember what it was like, what it looked like, what it felt like, all the ins and outs of it. So I honestly thought I was, I really thought he was being overly cautious. But I said, whatever you say, I trust you. Let's go ahead and do it. But I could tell he was very serious about me getting tested and me getting screened. So I left the office and immediately called to get scheduled for an echo. That echo was scheduled for about 2 to 3 weeks from that day. And when you get into an echocardiogram, I kind of want to explain it in layman's terms. For those who don't know, an echocardiogram, it's basically an ultrasound. They take the probe like you would see with a pregnant woman, where they're checking the baby, but instead of being down on the stomach, they are at your heart. They go from the side, from the front, up at your throat area, and basically it gives them images and video of the heart beating and the heart operating normally. It shows how the blood is flowing in and out of the heart, how the valves are working, and everything like that. It's painless. All it is the probe or the wand with the gel that they put on, and they just rub it around your chest just to be able to see all the different angles of the heart working, operating. They can measure circumference, they can measure diameter, they can measure the heart wall, they can measure all those different things based on this test and the machine that they're using. So it takes about 30 to 60 minutes. I think that first one took about 60 minutes. And it can detect things that basic heart scans like an EKG or just listening with a stethoscope cannot, detect. So that's exactly what they did with me during my echocardiogram. So after the echo, I, cleaned up, got wiped off from all the jelly and gel stuff they had on me, wiped up, cleaned up, got dressed, and, as I was walking out, I asked the nurse, how long will it take for me to get my results of this? Because at that point, the fact that I could tell my doctor was very serious, at that point, I was kind of nervous. I was anxious. I wanted to get the results back, obviously hoping that nothing was found or nothing was wrong with me, but realizing that there could be possibly something that needs immediate action or needs me to change something within my lifestyle. So I left the office. I went on about my normal life. They told me I would get a call from my doctor within 48 to 2 to 3 days, they said. And I went on about my normal life, went and worked out after that, went to work the next day, went to the gym the next day. And while I was at the gym, I get a phone call. I look down, pull it out, and it is my doctor, my family doctor. And immediately my heart kind of sunk because I was not expecting to hear from him that quickly. And I realized that, the fact that I'm getting a call from him that quickly probably isn't a good sign. So I answer the phone and he's like, hey, Kyle, you know, I haven't gotten all the test results back, but what I've gotten back and notes that I've gotten back is that you have something very wrong with your heart and we need to get you into a cardiologist immediately. He said, I already have you scheduled with one, but if you want to go ahead and get scheduled with another one that you prefer, that your family prefers, that's fine. But we're going to keep this one scheduled in case you can't get in quick enough with another one. So I was like, well, what's wrong? I asked, you know, what's wrong with me? He said, I don't have all the answers for you right now. They just sent me a message saying that you need to get into a cardiologist. So I was sent to a cardiologist, and that day I got off the phone with him, immediately called my mom and said, hey, this is what's going on. He wants me to see a cardiologist. He didn't tell me exactly what's wrong, but obviously it's something that it's not good. He's got me scheduled with one, but said we could schedule with another one if we preferred another doctor. So there was a cardiologist that my mom and my family had dealt with prior with my grandparents and with other people in my family. So she's like, I want to call him, see if he's taking new patients. You know, he was a well-renowned cardiologist in this area. He's a little older. I wasn't sure if I was going to get in with him, let alone get in quick enough. I figured I'll let you call. I said, yeah, call, see, but I had no high hopes. I did not have any high hopes on getting in with him at all or relatively quickly. So I hang up with my mom. She calls the cardiologist, and within 20 minutes, she calls me back. Hey, I got a appointment scheduled with this cardiologist. I think it was like a Thursday. She said, I got an appointment for next Monday. So I'm at that point extremely shocked about the fact that I got in with this cardiologist that quickly, and the fact that I was getting to see the one that we preferred, or that my family preferred. So I was very happy about that. So get to the cardiologist, and he basically tells me, comes in, sits down, and pulls out this model of a heart, and is kind of explaining everything that's going on in the heart, explaining the you know, what all the different parts of the heart is, where my condition is, and then explains, you know, that I had a severe mitral valve regurgitation. What that, with something called, you know, where I had backflow of blood flow into my heart. So breaking that down into normal language, because when they first told me, I really didn't know what was going on. Luckily, like I said, he had this model, so he was showing me kind of exactly what was going on. So let me explain that. Your heart has 4 chambers. And 4 valves. The mitral valve, which was what was wrong with me, sits between the left atrium and the left ventricle. So the atrium is on the top, ventricle is on the bottom. Basically, it controls the blood flow on the left side of your heart. So when your heart beats, your heart contracts, and then it expands again. Contracts, expands. When it contracts, blood flow is supposed to be pushed from the atrium through the ventricle out into your body. That blood is oxygenated blood. So what happens is when it contracts, that valve is supposed to open, let the blood flow from the atrium through the ventricle and out, and then it's supposed to close back up, not allowing any blood to come back into the atrium. When the heart expands again, it fills back up, and then it contracts. So when it fills back up, that valve is closed. When it contracts, that valve opens. So that blood is supposed to go out into the body. It's oxygenated blood, so it's giving your body the oxygenated blood it needs to function. Your body and muscles but everything needs that oxygenated blood to function properly. What was happening with me is the mitral valve was not closing properly. So instead of opening and shutting, mine had what was called a mitral flail, or basically the valve would open, and when it would open and go to close, it wouldn't just automatically shut. It would open and then kind of flail like this, and then flap down, but not fully close. So it would open, flail a little bit, open, flail a little bit, and not fully close. So in turn, because of that, every time my heart contracted and was beating, that blood, instead of flowing out into my body, was rushing back into my heart, into the atrium, instead of out into the body. That's what regurgitation means. Mitral valve regurgitation means the valve is not closing properly, the blood is being regurgitated back into the heart. So, it means it's going the wrong direction. My body's not getting the oxygenated blood it needs to function, which means the heart has to work on overdrive to pump enough blood to my body. So that's what my heart was doing. My heart was working overtime, trying to ensure that it was pumping enough blood to my body. But in turn, as it kept trying to pump more blood to my body, more blood was being sucked back into my heart. A huge portion of that was being regurgitated back up into the heart. So, in turn, my heart just kept working harder and harder and harder, which in turn made it expand and become enlarged. When that happens, then the wall of the heart starts thickening, which in layman's terms, most times when you hear, think about a muscle, the heart is a muscle. But if you think about muscle like your bicep or your chest, when you're weightlifting, it contracts, and when you contract it, it expands, it thickens, and gets bigger. Whereas in the heart, you want your heart to be as thin and as small and efficient as possible. So the walls thickening and it becoming enlarged is not a good thing. They told me basically at the bottom of your heart, it's supposed to come to like a cone shape, whereas mine looked like a big round boot. So the cardiologist classified this as a severe condition. He said, this is not mild, this is not moderate, this is severe. This is for your age, for your condition, for the shape that you're in. This is one of the more severe cases I've seen. So he told me, basically you have two options. We can wait, monitor it, and see where things go over the next couple weeks, and decide as we monitor if surgery is truly needed, or we can immediately go ahead and go the surgery route and fix the problem. He said, basically, I recommend you going ahead and doing surgery because based off of my findings and based off of the echo and based off of what I'm seeing, this isn't going to get better. It's not going to get better on its own. It's only going to keep getting worse, and eventually your heart will fail. He said, I don't know, I don't have an exact timeline. I can't tell based off of the exact findings I'm seeing in this echo, and I can't tell based off of the murmur that I hear. But eventually, from what I'm seeing and the findings I found, your heart is not going to heal itself. It is just going to keep getting worse and will eventually fail. So basically, after the cardiologist told me, really my only option, best option was surgery, I kind of was, at that moment in time, I was out of it. I, went into that office visit, that doctor's visit, very nervous, very scared, very anxious. I was sitting on the table shaking. Luckily, my mom went with me, and she was able to process and regurgitate all the knowledge and the information we were getting and soak that all in, because I wasn't. I was out of it. So all I heard was I had a severe heart condition and I needed open heart surgery. That's all I heard. Or I was going to die. That's truly all I heard. I almost shut down after that because I didn't know what to say. I was had all these feelings and emotions and thoughts running through my head, and I just was lost, at a loss for words. So he's, my mom was like, yeah, we would, looks at me and says, I think we need to do the surgery. And I was like, yeah, I agree. That's probably our best option. So the cardiologist says, you know what, due to your case and your age and the specificity of your case, I want to get you to meet with this surgeon that does a specific type of surgery. He's actually down the hall today. Do you mind if I bring him in for a consultation? I was like, yeah. Me and my mom were like, yeah, let's do it. Let's meet the surgeon right now. So the cardiologist gets up, walks out, walks down the hall, comes back a couple minutes later with the surgeon. So we all sit down, and the surgeon says, I haven't looked over your case intimately yet, but based off of what the cardiologist is saying and kind of what I looked at already as I was walking down here, I would love to take on your case. So what this surgeon provided, he was one of the surgeons who helped create a new style of open heart surgery. So there's now two styles. There's basically the old style, old version, the classic, you get cut down, they cut down the breastbone, the sternum, crack you all the way open, pull your chest cavity open, and go in from the top. Where he specialized in and created a minimally invasive surgery, which in turn he said, this is probably the best option for you. It's going to allow for a faster recovery, less scar tissue, a smaller scar, and allow you to be more active sooner and more active late as you grow and, get older. So what that means is the minimally invasive, they, as he described it, and now obviously I know, they go in through the right pectoral, the side of the right pectoral. They go in through there, kind of pull some ribs apart, pull the chest cavity open a little bit, and they go in arthroscopically with 3 different probes, and then obviously go in. There's a big incision right here on my pectoral, and then I have 3 small incisions here where they put probes in, and then I have an incision up under my armpit here on my side of the ribs for the chest tube that they put in. And then I have one in my groin for the catheter and everything they put up in through my groin. So that was option number 2. And obviously, after hearing him say, what was going on with what was available with this minimally invasive surgery, I was like, yeah, let's do that one. I want to be able to be active. I want to recover faster. I don't want to be cracked open down the middle of my chest and have to deal with healing bones and all of that stuff. So I would like to do that. So in turn, he said, all right, let's schedule another full-length consultation in the next coming days, and I'll go over the entire surgery, what's going on with your heart, kind of the process of everything we need to do prior to surgery, and then the recovery after surgery. At that moment, I was making the decisions, but I was 22 years old. I didn't want to live my life wondering when my heart was going to give out. I didn't want to be limited. I didn't want to die young. I didn't want to do that to my family, and I wanted to keep living. So obviously the surgery was the best option, and based off the findings and what they were telling me, I didn't have much time to decide anyway. So we scheduled the consultation. We go in for the consultation. He describes, everything I needed to do pre-surgery, describe the surgery, and then describe my recovery. I would spend a couple of days in the hospital after. Then I would have to be off work 8 weeks, have to go to cardiac rehab, all that stuff. So he said, when do you want to do the surgery? And we said, as soon as possible. I vividly remember my mom saying, if it was up to me, I would have scheduled this surgery for yesterday. And he looked back at me, and this was when I realized, this is a bad situation. The surgeon looked and said, yeah, if it were up to me, I would have done this surgery yesterday too, based on the findings that I'm seeing and based off the condition of his heart this needs to be done quickly. He was going out of town to a convention, to teach at a convention that weekend. I think that was like a Wednesday or Thursday. So we scheduled the surgery for the following week, basically because I needed to have pre-checkups. I had to go to the dentist, I had to get blood drawn, I had to get all these different things taken care of before surgery to make sure that I was cleared for open heart surgery. But we scheduled for the following week, March 15th, 2022. I walked into the hospital not knowing if I was going to wake up. I went the days after that consultation, after we scheduled the surgery, basically not knowing if I was going to wake up every single day. They told me, you know, from today till surgery day, don't exert yourself. Don't do anything where you're going to raise your heart rate above this level. We don't want to take any risks of you not making it to surgery. And so I went about my life, and day by day, not knowing if I was going to wake up, got to the hospital, not knowing what was waiting for me on the other side, not knowing what was waiting for me in recovery. All I was worried about was the surgery and making it through the surgery. But I woke up, and during that surgery, I had a near-death experience that changed everything, but that's a story for another time, for another video. But that did take place, but luckily I woke up on the other side and woke up in the recovery office with recovery room with my two parents right there next to me, and that's all I could have asked for. So the crazy part about all this, and the thing that kept going through my head, was I felt fine. You know, I had been feeling a little off, but it was the winter time. It was December, January, and that's normally the time of year that I get relatively bad allergies and bad congestion, which in turn ignites a little allergy-induced asthma, shortness of breath, and things of that nature. I also wasn't doing a lot of cardiovascular exercise during my training, so I thought, hey, this is just a normalcy every winter. You know, I deal with some allergy stuff, deal with congestion, deal with some allergy-induced asthma. So I just put off the fact that I was getting shortness of breath during normal tasks. I was associating it with that. I also had been realizing that my blood pressure was rising, but I started associating that with diet. You know, I was consuming too much sodium, or I needed to change this in my diet, or I needed to change this in my lifestyle to lower my blood pressure. I never associated any of these minimal symptoms. I wasn't, you know, feeling extreme shortness of breath during normal tasks. It was just minimal. But I did realize that, especially now looking back, that I was getting shortness of breath during normal tasks that I wouldn't have otherwise. So that's the kind of the scary part, the scary thing about heart conditions, especially like this one. You don't always have symptoms, or you can relate the symptoms that you're having to other things, to allergies, to asthma, to diet, to lifestyle, to exercise. You can relate these things. It's not like, hey, I'm getting super sharp chest pains, I can't breathe, my heart rate's out of control. There was none of that. I felt fine, relatively. So my body had basically, what that told me is my body had started adapting. My heart was working harder than it should have been to compensate for the lack of blood flow, oxygenated blood into my body. But I couldn't really feel the fact that my heart was adapting so drastically. If my doctor, my family doctor at my yearly physical, hadn't caught the murmur during a routine physical, I could have kept living my life, doing the same things that I was doing, feeling the same way that I was feeling. And one day I could have been at work, I could have been at the gym, I could have been sleeping and not woken up, or fallen over in sudden cardiac arrest and not be here today. That's what happens to most and a lot of young people, especially athletes, kids who seem perfectly healthy, who seem like they're in good shape, who seem like they are have their health under control. That's why you hear these stories of these kids collapsing on the field of play, on the court, in the pool, or not waking up in the morning because no one understands that these things, or no one knows that these things are happening. And then in turn, this kid doesn't wake up or falls over dead and nobody knows why. So it's because most of these kids who are, that you read in the headlines, that you see in the news, that you see on a newspaper, that you see in news articles, these kids are never screened. Most of them have never had an echocardiogram, and an echocardiogram is truly the only test that can catch structural heart defects, specifically like mine, or any heart defects or abnormalities that would not show up in an EKG, which only really truly shows you the electrical process of the heart rhythm. None of these tests give you, other than the echo, give you a full picture of what's going on in the heart. So you wouldn't catch a hole being in the heart. You wouldn't catch a bad valve. You wouldn't catch an enlarged heart. You wouldn't catch the fact that the walls are thickening. You wouldn't catch these things unless these kids have an echocardiogram done. So, like I'm saying, only the echocardiogram can do these things and can show these abnormalities. Only an echocardiogram. And that's why this year, 2026, I'm running 2,000 miles. Not because I want to get, the recognition of running that much, or running races, or running with my dogs. I don't care about any of that. I'm not racing to break times or break records or be the first heart survivor to do this or do that. I am running because 2,000 kids under the age of 25 die every year. And in my mind, that should never happen. These kids should not be dying of sudden cardiac arrest. It should just shouldn't happen. Because if they have gotten preventative measures, specifically had gotten an echocardiogram, if someone would have caught something early, like me, they might still be here. If it wasn't for proactive doctors, specifically my family doctor, saying, hey, I want to send you for an echo immediately, more than likely I would not be here being able to share my story and being able to share this mission. It just is something that just doesn't happen. And I've learned that over the years now of speaking with other heart survivors or families who have lost a loved one due to an abnormality or sudden cardiac arrest. I've learned that doctors do not do that. They say, let's monitor it. And then by the time it's monitored and by the time it's too late, by the time we get to an echo or by the time we get to the screenings, it's too late and tragedy hits and we can't do anything about it. And that's why I'm running 2,000 miles, because I want to bring awareness and put light on this situation. So, life as a heart survivor. What's my heart like now? After surgery, I'm about to hit my 4-year anniversary here in March. So, the surgery was successful. They repaired my mitral valve. I didn't have to have it replaced. They repaired what was wrong with it. They put this metal ring in my heart to make sure it's stable and everything's working correctly. What I didn't know, and what they didn't know until they got in there, is that there's these phalanges, finger-like projectiles that hold the valve in place. They're called the chordae. What they told me, what they found when they got in there, is that what was causing the flail of my mitral valve was that I had ruptured chordae. So instead of, there was nothing holding the valve in place. which in turn caused it to open and flail and not close fully. Now, they got in there, they fixed those, the flail, they fixed that. Now my mitral valve works perfectly fine. Blood flows in and out of my heart correctly. I don't have the regurgitation that was there prior. What they were worried about before my surgery was the fact that my heart was so misshapen and so out of shape. They were afraid that it wouldn't heal back to its normal shape, which in turn wouldn't allow it to be as efficient and heal back to its full capacity, which I don't know if I'll ever be back to my full capacity of a normal heart, because yes, everything is fixed, but it did still go through that trauma, that traumatic experience, and I don't ever think I'm going to be fully back to a normal heart, but I have about as normal as a heart now as I possibly could have. I still see a cardiologist every 6 months or so, at least once a year. I still have an echo done once a year or by my cardiologist request. He, based off of my activity levels and the things that I'm doing and pushing myself to the limits that really they don't even know, he sometimes says, let's do an echo just to make sure we're all right for you to be able to do this event, do this race, or do this thing that I'm planning. So I go about my day-to-day life normally. My heart is strong. I feel strong. I definitely feel, even though now I'm almost 4 years out, on March 15th of 2026 will be my 4-year anniversary. I still don't even think my heart is fully healed. I don't think my body is fully healed yet, and I'm definitely not to the full capacity of what I feel like I could get to. Again, even though I'm 4 years out, that was one of the most traumatic events my body could go through. You know, nobody tells you the pain and the struggle that open heart surgery brings. And again, that's something I can get into in coming videos. I'm not going to dive into all that now, but currently, like I said, I don't feel like I'm to my full capacity, but I'm doing things that even my cardiologists and family members still question if I'm able to do these things. But now I'm running marathons, half marathons, ultra marathons. I will be running the Heart Mini Marathon in March, which is going to be a very special day for me because the Heart Mini Marathon this year in 2026 is on March 15th, 2026. So I'll be racing in that half marathon on my 4-year anniversary. They call it the heartiversary of my open heart surgery, which is going to be very special. I have a feeling it's going to bring on a lot of emotions. It does every single year. Just knowing that I'm able to spend another year with my family, spend another year with my dogs, and spend another year living life on this flying rock that, for a long time I wish I wouldn't have been here. So I'm training for actually an ultra that's coming in April after the Heart Mini, a 50K, so a 31-mile race. Kind of a backyard ultra type deal that I got invited to by family friends. And then I'm training for a marathon in May. I'm training for another marathon in October, the Chicago Marathon. The Flying Pig Marathon is in May. And then I'm trying to do some sort of self-made ultra marathon in the end of the year, whether that be the end of October, beginning of November, where, I do something extravagant, something big, that whether that be, I have ideas of running from the southern border of Kentucky to the northern tip of Kentucky, which would be about 300 miles. Obviously not doing that in one day, but doing that in a period of time within a couple days. Doing that obviously with my dogs. I'm obviously training every single day, running with my dogs. They are an integral part, specifically Moose, which I'm going to do a whole video on my dogs, but and their stories. But specifically Moose, I adopted him 3 days before my heart surgery. People thought I was crazy, but in the long run, he saved me. He saved my life. You know, I rescued him from a shelter, but he rescued me. But yeah, I feel healthy. I feel strong. I feel fantastic. My heart is normal. And that's all that I could ask for. And that's what I'm going to continue to push the limits, to break down the barriers that have been put upon heart survivors, and continue to hopefully be a beacon of hope and an inspiration to others. So the one thing that I ask everybody to take from this video is get screened. Get your children screened. Get heart testing done. If you're a young athlete, if you have kids who play sports, if you are head of a sport organization, or if you're an athletic director, a principal, a superintendent of a school system, if you're a health administrator of counties or local cities, push for heart screenings in your area, in your school, in your sport, in your athletic program, in your counties, in your cities, in your states. Yes, other heart screenings like EKGs are good, but nothing is as good and as profound for catching abnormalities as the echocardiogram. If you are interested, I am partnering with an organization and have been partnering with this organization for some time now, called MCOR Foundation. They specifically provide limited echocardiogram screenings to kids aged 12 to 22. That is the program and the foundation that I am sponsoring and raising funds for, to fund heart screenings. That's why I'm doing this mission, to take donations, to get funding for this foundation, to be able to put on heart screening events and pay for heart screenings for kids aged 12 to 22. Now, those heart screenings from this foundation do come at a donation cost of $79. But in my mind, that's a drop in the bucket, especially compared to if you go and have this screening done at a health office or a doctor's office. It's going to be thousands of dollars if they will do it, which they will probably not do it without cause. Insurances will not pay for it without cause. Even insurance won't even pay for some of mine sometimes. And I'm a heart survivor because I've had too many in the year or different reasons. So it's a very taboo topic in the health and insurance world. But with this foundation, it's a $79 donation to the foundation. If they do a heart screening event at your school, you pay the $79, you get your kid screened, and you get all the information you would ever need to know, one, if your child has an abnormality, and two, if they do have an abnormality, how to treat it and what to do and take further action with that if needed. So I'm running 2,000 miles this year, 1 mile for every kid who is lost every year from sudden cardiac arrest under the age of 25. And I'm sharing my story, just like I am with this video. I am trying to raise awareness, raise funds, raise donations, and I'm asking you to help. I'm asking for all the help that I can get. Whether you donate $1, $5, $10, $50, or you fund a whole screening of $79, or if you know a small business or company that is open to sponsoring an event or sponsoring my mission, I am taking on local sponsorships as well. Those are tiered at 100 screenings, 500 screenings, and 1,000 screenings. If you know of a small business or a big company in the area or in your hometown or whatever, I please send them my way. If they are looking for donation opportunities and charity opportunities, what's better than funding proper screenings for the next generation, the youth of our society, and making sure they are healthy and fit and properly ready to compete in sports or to be physically fit and active. So I ask personally that if you can fund or help push on this mission, I ask that. If you're a small business owner or work at a company or whatever, I ask, let's partner and put your name to screenings. And then if all else, if you just like, comment, subscribe, share this video, the more eyes and the more ears that can hear my message and can hear my story and can hear about my mission, the better. That's all I ask. So, like I said, if you want to fund a screening, I will put my link to my website where you can fund a screening. I'll put that in the description and in my bio of my social media accounts. If you know a young athlete who needs screening, share this video. If you, like I said, if you know a business owner, share this video. If you know athletic directors or principals or superintendents or sport facilitators, share it with them. I would love to put on screening events at any of these facilities or any of these type of places. Early detection is the only way to save lives. Prevention and preventative measures is the way to save lives. Not reaction, but prevention. Early action is the most effective way to lower these death rates and stop seeing the headlines of kids dying every single year. Thank you for watching. I appreciate all the love and support from all of you out there, and I will see you in the next one. Let's save lives together, let's save hearts together, and let's screen kids together.